On Monday, South Korean President Lee Jae-myung was in Washington for the first time as president. That meeting, he met with Trump in the Oval Office. That meeting included like the standard ass-kissing, promises to invest in the U.S., along with a press conference, which per Trump's new kind of, approach, they do it before the meeting actually happens, which drives me crazy because they don't talk about what they agree to. And then in this instance, I don't know if you watched it, Ben, like it was so logistically stupid because there was no infrastructure in the Oval Office for simultaneous translation.
I saw this, yeah.
Right, so everything took forever. So anyway, for context, right, like South Korea, one of our closest allies in Asia, the U.S. is 28,500 troops stationed in South Korea. The U.S. has had a free trade agreement with South Korea in place since 2012, which the Trump administration has just decided to ignore or pretend it doesn't exist because we're slapping tariffs on them. So there's a very important substantial relationship. This meeting also comes on the heels of this period of enormous political instability in South Korea, including former President Yoon Suk-yeol's declaration of martial law in December of 2024, and then the subsequent impeachment proceedings of him and others. But so, like, despite all this tumult and the importance of the relationship, like, Trump doesn't care about anything or anyone but himself, and just decided to, like, roll grenade after grenade into the conversation. Before the meeting even started, he posts on Truth Social, quote, this is all caps, "What is going on in South Korea seems like a purge or revolution. We can't have that and do business there. I'm seeing the new president today at the White House. Thank you for attention to this matter. 3 exclamation points." And, like, there's no context what he's talking about. He later sort of explained that he was referencing reports of like raids on churches, the search of an American military base. And we later learned, for context, the church raid was part of an investigation into this kind of like January 6th style storming of a courthouse in support of President Yoon Suk-yeol. And the military base search took place on the Korean side of a base that is jointly operated by both the U.S. and South Korea. But, Trump didn't care about any of that. And then, Ben, here's a supercut we made of the pool spray itself, or the press conference that takes place at the pool spray. The first voice you're going to hear is the Korean translator answering a question about the investigation into his predecessor because of this martial law declaration. Here's a clip.
There is a fact-finding investigation by a special prosecutor that was appointed by the National Assembly. And this special prosecutor...
Is his name deranged Jack Smith, by any chance? they took him from our country. Deranged Jack. He's a deranged, sick individual. I would say that Washington, D.C. right now is much safer than Seoul. You know why? Because we have a friendly neighbor. We have more friendly neighbors. You have a different kind of problem. We all have different problems.
Would you go back to the DMZ to meet with the North Korean leaders?
I loved it. Remember when I walked across the line and everyone went crazy? Especially Secret Service, I would say they were crazy. And I looked into those windows, the windows, the glass, that you could only see if you looked direct, because there was all sorts of stuff. But I looked in and I saw more rifles pointing at me than you could. There were a lot of rifles in that building. If you remember, you were doing the Olympics and there was a great time of hostility with North Korea, and you weren't selling tickets because nobody wanted to be blown up in the stadium during the opening ceremonies. The whole issue of the women, comfort women, very specifically, we talked, and that was a very big problem for Korea, not for Japan. Japan wanted to go. They want to get on, but Korea was very stuck on that.
Okay, so the person like chortling in the background at the top is JD Vance, by the way. So Ben, the South Koreans, they come to this meeting, they're hoping to win Trump over by promising this like massive investment into shipbuilding. But I think that clip we just played is so instructive because you hear Trump just like vomiting out nonsense and cracking jokes about the most sensitive issues possible for South Korea. Like he makes South Korea's martial law declaration and concern about a possible military coup about himself and Jack Smith. He makes a joke about North Korea bombing the Olympics in Seoul. He talks about the legacy of Korean women being forced into sexual slavery by Japan and like doesn't seem to understand why that was more of an issue for the Korean side than the Japanese side. It's just like he's just riffing in the most offensive way humanly possible.
Yeah, I apologize to the people of South Korea.
It's so embarrassing.
It's so embarrassing. And look, we should say President Lee, the new president of South Korea, has done a pretty good job by all accounts at kind of stabilizing the situation there, trying to reach out a little bit to the opposition, move past that incredibly divisive period they went through. So the point is, though, that it's not only just like a normal meeting with the president of South Korea. It's they've just been through some shit.
And it's dicey.
It's dicey. Like, this guy's new. Like, he wants to get the kind of fortification of the most important ally that has allowed them to survive since the Korean War against this hostile neighbor. And instead, you've got Trump, joking about like things that are pretty core to their national identity. I mean, the comfort women are both about the horror of what happened to those women. It's also about the like centuries of colonization at the hands of different powers, including Japan, and so his just lack of regard for that at all is just on such display. And if you think that that's not going to permeate the body politic in South Korea, if you think that, we can have a president just treat people like garbage like that and insult the country, and that, sure, maybe they kiss his ass now and lie about some big shipbuilding investment to avoid tariffs. But again, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years from now, they will be trading more with China. They'll be looking to get, like less reliant on the United States. Maybe they'll need their own nuclear weapons so they don't have to deal with like having to kiss up to Mr. Trump. They're worried about what he wants to do with Kim Jong-un. I mean, so it's just everything has collapsed, because in the first Trump term, this would have been, to your point, like big story, like, we're treating South Korea like garbage. Now it's literally like,
it was one of 3 press avails on the day.
Register here, but guess where it registers? It registers in South Korea.
Yeah. And also, like, Trump does these little, the sprays that turn into press avails, and he ends up talking the entire time and taking a bunch of unrelated issues as his poor, head of state sits the potted plant. We want to play a little bit more, including some questions he got about the war in Ukraine and efforts to broker peace.
We're going to get that war straightened out. We're going to get it done. I don't know that they'll meet. Maybe they will. Maybe they won't. They'd like me to be at the meeting. I said, you guys ought to work it out. But he wasn't happy about coming to the United States either. That was a big concession, and I appreciate the fact that he did. I stopped 7 wars that were raging, one for 31 years, the Congo, and as you know, Rwanda. I thought this would be, in many ways, the easiest way. I have a very good relationship with Putin. I thought it would be the easiest one to stop, and it's really not. It's very complex. I would like to see them meet first. They'd like me to be there. I may be there. I may not. I'll see.
So I just real quick here, Ben, just a little, we want to just keep this guy accountable. Like, there's been no progress of any of these next phases of what was supposed to be this peace process, right? Yeah. There's supposed to be a bilateral between Zelensky and Putin. That's not happening. The Russians are now sort of making it sound like they maybe will send some like 2-bit, third tier delegation to meet with, or I think they invited Zelensky to come to Russia, which hell of an invitation there. He's also keeps saying that like Putin coming to the U.S. was a concession for Putin or hard for him, which is just the opposite of what's true. Opposite. And then again, like the number of wars he's claiming to have ended keeps going up and up and up. Now it's at 7. I think it was someone said it might have been 10. I don't even know what they are anymore. But like he keeps saying he's ended the war between the DRC and Rwanda. But Human Rights Watch says that the M23 rebels killed at least 140 people in eastern Congo just last month. They're summarily executing women and children. So again, like, the war's not over. What are we talking about?
The Russia-Ukraine thing is kind of crazy when you think about it, given how high profile these summits were that yielded precisely absolutely fucking nothing, right? And the only thing we've seen in the Russia-Ukraine war is an uptick in Russian attacks on Ukrainians over the last weeks and months. And again, in any normal world, that would be like absolutely devastatingly humiliating to a president of the United States to exact that kind of effort, to disrupt everybody's schedules, fly all these Europeans over for no fucking reason whatsoever, with no strategy, no plan for follow-up. So that's one thing. And then, this kind of manipulation into all global events, into like the, homework submission, like the college application for the Nobel Peace Prize, is actually getting kind of dangerous, because now we're all supposed to pretend like things were settled in the DRC when people are still being killed, and there's still the militia's still there. Like, sure, maybe these leaders felt like they had to say something to get Trump off their back on tariffs, but they didn't really agree to anything, right? If you think that the India-Pakistan conflict was resolved, it's actually dangerous to think that. Yeah. It's dangerous for Trump to kind of declare that somehow India and Pakistan are not in conflict over Kashmir anymore. They're entirely still in a like a Cold War that becomes hot periodically over that conflict, right? So this is the requirement. I mean, to connect the thread even to like the intelligence firings, like the requirement that everybody has to be stupid, and has to just live in this bizarro world where he's solving all these problems and whatever he says is true, and he's a genius and he should get the Nobel Peace Prize. We've never experienced anything like this in our lives.